Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new, very special new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, we're talking about a brand new studio album, a Christmas album, in fact, from Big Dumb Face, the industrial death metal, comedy metal side project of Wes Borland of Limp Bizkit fame and notoriety. So, might need this. A lot of red flags, shall we say, right off the fucking bat with that description. But hey, you fucking asked for it, so let's get this show on the road. It should be pretty common knowledge by now that Limp Bizkit is not my favorite band in the world. It should also be pretty common knowledge by now that Christmas is not my favorite time of the year. Quite the opposite. I am what some would call a Grinch. And it should also be pretty common knowledge by now that comedy metal is not my favorite subgenre. Not so much because I hate comedy, but because I hate how metalheads perceive and treat comedy. The punchline to every comedy metal album is, I'm a fat old white man and I love beer, boobs, and old school heavy metal. And for anyone who doesn't believe me, you are more than welcome to look up literally anything from Brian Posehn, Jim Florentine, and let's just be brutally honest here, even Tenacious fucking D. So in theory, with all of this in mind, I should not like this album at all. If anything, it almost sounds like something that was designed to infuriate and enrage and annoy me. But in execution, not only is there some legitimately entertaining music on here, but it's also so ridiculous, so over-the-top weird and strange and chaotic that it's honestly kind of fascinating. Like, even when this album is at its absolute worst, even when it is legitimately somewhat obnoxious and grating to the ears, I can't help but admire the absolute maelstrom of random insanity. It's like a glorious train wreck decorated in Christmas lights and tinsel and candy. There's blood, guts, machinery, and bits of gingerbread cookies and candy cane flying all over the fucking place. For instance, you've got tracks like The Possession of Leslie Bibb and Lost in a Forest of Christmas Trees, which batter the senses with very noisy, primitive, but weirdly muscular, chunky, and effective groove-laden death metal, very reminiscent of early Slipknot, and to some extent even Morbid Angel. Then you've got a track like El Greco's Twisted Christmas, which, honest to God, sounds like somebody commissioned Acid Bath to write a song for some kind of low-budget Christmas comedy special, but suddenly Acid Bath got really into Beastie Boys. I don't know. I don't think that description makes sense, but then again, nothing in this fucking song makes sense, so maybe that means it does make sense. I don't fucking know. Then you've got a track like My Christmas Heart, which is intentionally somewhat awkward and nervous and clumsy. It's like a really, really simple, almost childish kind of Christmas ballad, but very amateurly performed on ukulele. And then there's It's Christmas, which after a very brief and brutal blast of death grind and death metal savagery, just turns into a full-on conversation between members of Big Dumb Face and I guess people working in the studio with them. I mean, there are some trippy vocal effects. It kind of makes it feel like you're in some kind of echo chamber, but for the most part, yeah, it's just a regular conversation, like they're just sitting around drinking beer and they forgot to stop recording. And folks, don't even get me started on the completely nonsensical and unnecessary random filler and fat that is the 26-minute opus Necrotic Feast. Folks, I could probably make another whole video dissecting everything that happens in just this track. I doubt it would accomplish anything, considering there's nothing of substance or value here, but I could, in theory, hypothetically. And as weird as so much of this material gets, I am mostly enjoying it. I mean, Necrotic Feast was maybe a step too far. I just have no idea why this track is even here. But everything else, honestly, I was vibing with it. I was headbanging to some of those dirty fucking grooves. I was enjoying the beats, the melodies, some of the sillier lyrics. I was especially enjoying tracks like Thunder Tusk and Avoiding the Cyclops, the former of which is filled with some of the tightest, dirtiest grooves and beatdowns on the record, the latter of which had me legitimately giggling and laughing and chuckling to myself, something that very rarely happens when I listen to a comedy, metal, or rock record. In part because of the really wacky, over-the-top kind of shred metal keyboard stuff, and also in part because of the extremely childish and simple lyrics. Like, there's something about Wes Borland just kind of shouting cheese and crackers in the very beginning that legitimately caught me off guard. As far as the production value of the record is concerned, this is where things are a little bit more inconsistent and ineffective. As much as I appreciate how intentionally nasty and abrasive this record is, there are times where it just kind of seems somewhat ugly, somewhat irritating. Like, a lot of the keyboard and guitar stuff on Your Grandma Got You Khaki Slacks is a great example. At a certain point, it feels like you're just listening to a bunch of high-pitched static and white noise. The program drums are pretty hit and miss as well. Sometimes it carries the weight of, like, something I would hear out of Agoraphobic Nosebleed back in the day, but other times it's quite tepid and flat. It sounds like Wes Borland is just open-hand smacking pieces of red meat. But ultimately, despite all of this, I feel comfortable saying that I did actually enjoy this record. And even when I didn't, it was weird enough that I was still engaged with the record. So believe it or not, I would actually give this a semi-enthusiastic 3 to 5. I think it's pretty decent. I think anybody walking into this expecting a more straightforward kind of comedy metal record or a more straightforward Limp Bizkit nu metal frat boy bruiser would be pretty disappointed, and I can't help but wonder how this would resonate with people who take Christmas much more seriously than I. This is definitely one of those albums where you just kind of have to turn off your brain, for lack of a better term, and just absorb it for what it is. If you don't like it, that's fine. There's no rule saying you have to. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, more power to you. But if you're gonna sit here and get really upset because a band called Big Dumb Face didn't bring you anything especially intelligent or progressive or substantial, then quite frankly, you're wasting my time, your time, and Big Dumb Face's time. Like I said before, there's a lot of stuff in Big Dumb Face's musical DNA, and in this album's DNA that I should not like, that I typically do not like. There's a lot of fat and gristle on this Christmas roast beef, and yet, I've enjoyed it. You know, it was a noble effort. It was tasty. It wasn't consistent. Could have been cooked a little better. You know, I prefer my beef closer to medium than well done, but hey, it really wasn't that bad in the grand scheme of things. This could have been a hell of a lot worse. So yeah, believe it or not, 3 to 5. It's kind of decent. Check it out. Why not? Fuck it, you got nothing better to do. You're here. If you did have something better to do, you wouldn't be here. It's that simple. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.